Last time, in our last video, we were having trouble logging into our ECP console. I'm making this video just a few minutes after I made that one, and embarrassingly enough, I figured out what our issue was. I was saying something along the lines of updating the SP1 to solve that problem, but really the only problem was I wasn't specifying the domain in front of the username I wanted to log in as. For some reason, I didn't remember ever having to do this in earlier installs, but I guess I must have. So to kind of explain what I mean, let's go ahead and go to my ECP. Now I'm going through the internet, and I don't have any certificates created for my web server. So if you when you want to get to your web server, you have to say continue anyway, or your Exchange server. Sorry. So when I was just doing this and trying to use my password and log in. What you need to do is specify your domain and then your username, then your password. Hopefully that'll let me in. Okay. And niche. I got the O and the W mixed up again. There. So anyway, that was my issue. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it, but that was the only reason I couldn't log in. So as you can see, this is our ECP console. This is where you will administrate your Exchange box for the most part. So you can do it from across the web. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be logged into the local computer. You don't have to be remoting into the local computer to access this. I have it padded to my local address, and I don't have any DNS records created for it, so actually my local address is exposed right there. Not that would really matter. I suppose if you saw my domain name, you'd know how to get to it that way too. Anyway, or anyone with NS lookup could just look it up, but it doesn't matter. So again, there's a lot of functionality here, most of which I haven't even touched. Mobile devices, I've never had to use that. I've set up basic Exchange servers so I can send and receive mail and I've created user mailboxes. That's about it. However, just being able to do that is impressive to an employer or to anyone using Exchange isn't. They've made it pretty easy, but it takes a little bit of know-how to get one installed. So it's nice when you can walk into a job interview and say, I've gotten good at, installing and configuring Exchange machines. However, if you really want to get good at that, you should learn how to migrate Exchange from 2013, from something like an Exchange organization running server 2003 to 2013, because that's really what people want nowadays. A lot of migrations going on, and that will continue to go on. Anyway, so our Exchange server isn't fully functional yet. What we need to do is create a send connector. So right now, theoretically, we should be able to receive mail. With Exchange 2013, all of our receive connectors are made for us by default, and they should be functional. So if I had some appropriate DNS records made for this Exchange box, it would receive mail. However, I can't send mail because no send connector was created on install. So that's what we're going to do today. Again, I'm going to use TechNet for excuse me. I'm going to use TechNet for the how-to on creating a send connector. It's not very hard. So here is the little checklist of things to do. I'm using IE. Honestly, I almost always run into this issue if I'm using Google Chrome, or, well, just Google Chrome, really. and I can get to my ECP console just fine. I can get to this area just fine. However, once I get to the next step of this wizard, there's a button like this one for adding a new namespace. And with Google Chrome, for some reason, you just can't click it. There's no interaction there. And you can't really complete a send connector without being able to hit that button. Nothing recognized it. So IE seems to fix that problem. So anyway, step one, we're using an internet send connector because we plan to send mail to the internet. We're going to name it whatever we want. Okay. I'm going to go to next. So we're going to use MX records associated with the recipient domain. We're not going to route mail through. We don't have any smart hosts, so we're not going to route mail through smart hosts. Click next. Let's make sure that's what TechNet agrees with. Yeah. So now this this is where it wouldn't work. I could not click this button for some reason while using Chrome. So anyway, we're going to add a address space. I said namespace. So we want to make sure we have SMTP selected. Fully qualified domain name. So I believe we want to enter in there. We're going to enter the star, the asterisk, whatever it's called. I think it's a star. And the cost we can leave at 1, I believe. Yeah, we're not even going to mention the cost. We only have one exchange box. I don't think it would matter. So we're going to click save, and so we have that. Click next. Oh, scope send connection. Do we want that checked? It's not selected. Okay, so a source server would be like an edge transport server. Like I said, we're running Exchange, the very one of the first versions of Exchange. This isn't SP1. If you remember back during the install wizard, you can select the mailbox role and the client access server role for install. Well, if you were running SP1, you'd also have the option of running the Edge Transport Server role install. So an Edge Transport Server acts as like you route all your mail through it. I want to say it's like a router for mail, but it's just it's an in-between. You can put spam filters on your Edge Transport Server. It's an added layer of security because mail isn't getting sent directly to your Exchange server, your mailbox server, your client access server. But there's really no reason for you to. For small organizations, there's really no reason to use it. It's usually only used nowadays for really big organizations, the Edge Transport role. Anyway, so that's what this step right here is asking for. It's asking if are you using an Edge Transport server, and if you are, please put its address or name in here. We're not, so we're just going to click finish. Well, we must have to put something in there. Okay. Excuse me. I guess you actually have to select your mailbox server. If nothing else, you don't. So it's not just if you were using an Edge Transport server, you put it in there. If not, just select your mailbox server. Click finish. Okay, and we have our send connector, and it's enabled. So that should be all we really need. This, assuming your port address translation is correct and your DNS records are correct, you should now have a fully functional Exchange 2013 box. So congratulations if you made it this far. I guess what I'll show you now, I don't have any DNS servers really running. So I can't show you how to create DNS records, but DNS records for Exchange are pretty easy. What you want is a technically, let's say you don't have any resources that you want, externalized. So you'd make a host record for your domain. It's just a blank host record for your domain, whatever it is. So in my case, I'd make a host record for inish.mon.com. And then I would make a host record called mail, or you'd use the name of your Exchange server. So this Exchange server is named EX. I would make a host record for it called, I'd name it ex.inish.mon.com. Just a plain old host A record. And then I would make a MX record pointing to that host record for Exchange. That's it. All you really need are three records for Exchange to work. You want a host record for your organization, for your domain, a host record for your Exchange server itself, and then an MX record pointing to the host record for Exchange. That's if I can find an example, and I really can. I don't have any DNS servers. Well, yeah, I can. I can just show you my domain controller. Let's go to DC. Okay, it's doing that thing. Let's go to DC2. Open up the console. We haven't messed too much with DNS in this video series, and there's really no need to so far. I mean, this is a completely new domain, and it updates all your DNS records for you as you create and add things to it. So anyway, in Server Manager, we're going to go to DNS, and then we're going to right-click on Domain Controller 2 and go to DNS Manager. You can also get to DNS Manager through the Tools drop-down box, I believe. So DC2, drop that down. Forward lookup zones. Now you see we have two. I think I went over this before. We have technically two forward lookup zones. This one is more geared toward, I'm not even sure what the MSDCS forward lookup zone is used for. It has, I'm familiar with these name server records. These aliases, I'm not sure what they're used for. These CNAME records. Anyway, let's go to, let's forget about that for now. Got some lag. Okay, there we go. And let's go to inish.mon.com. Now this is more what I'm used to looking to. So let's say you have a couple DNS servers online. Oops. Or on the web. So a couple authoritative name servers on the web, and you want to create MX records for your Exchange box. What you're going to do is, and I might actually have to do it for this. For my domain too, for mail to work, but it doesn't matter right now. So what you do is right-click in the space and click New Host. So you want a host record, a blank host record. You can use the star actually. That means that it'll respond to null value. So if I just typed in inish.mon.com, it'll know you're talking about inish.mon.com and not. There's no need for the www anyway. It's called a null record. You give it the IP address of, in this case, I would give it the IP address of my Exchange box. Right. The public address. Again, this is an internal, this being my internal domain, I'm going to delete these records, but if you actually had an external DNS server, this is the record you put. Okay, it was successfully created. So now I have a blank host record for my domain. Again, but it points to the public address of my Exchange server. Then I'm going to create another host record for my Exchange server. I'm going to give it the computer name because it needs to be able to resolve to the computer eventually. So EX is what my computer is named, .inish.mon.com. I'm going to give the same public IP address. click enter, and there, so that's my host record specifically for my mail exchange server. And actually, it exists right here too internally. But anyway, then I'm going to make one more record, an MX record. So for the MX record, you're going to leave this blank, host or child domain, which it's going to use your fully qualified domain name by default if you don't specify anything there, because arrow locked up. Okay, so if you start typing things in here, you'll see it fills in down there. We want to use the blank. Anyway, now we give it the fully qualified domain name of the server. So you can browse through here. All we're doing is supplying it with the host record that we just created. So I could click browse and browse to that host record to specify, or I could just type it in again. And click OK. So that should be all you need. With those 3 records being publicly available on your authoritative name servers, they should work for your DNS for your Exchange box. You should be able to receive mail with those. Some people like to create SPF records as well. I believe that's what they're called, and there's a few reasons why you want to do that, I guess. And I forgot why, but they're not vital anymore. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and delete these, because like I said, this is my internal domain. I don't really want public records on it. It just makes no sense to have, because I don't want people going out and coming back in to communicate with my Exchange server. Anyway, so those are the DNS records. And now, really quick, I guess I'll go over port address translation for your Exchange box. I already have a window open. Okay, so this is our NAT router, and I'm pretty sure I at least showed you guys this. This is the CSR 1000V. It's the same command line interface of any Cisco router. So what I do is I went to enable, and I'm going to do show run to show the running configuration. I'm going to scroll down. So right here you can see I don't have any cursor, so I can't point. But an interface gigabit Ethernet 1, that's my public. That's the public side of my router, and interface gigabit Ethernet 2 was the private side. So you can see I have 2 addresses assigned to my public side because I have a few different servers, and I want, some of them are using .28 as the outside address, some of them are using .29. My Exchange server is using .29 as the outside address and being port translated on 3 different ports actually. So let's go ahead and keep scrolling down, and here you can see our port address translations. I got a few of them, and some of them are a little bit out of date, I believe. So 10.29.0.5 is the address for our Exchange box. And again, I wish I could point, but for example, let's go to the very last port address translation. So it says IPNet inside source static UDP 10.29.0.5 3389. And the public address 198.108.209.29, and then 3389, and then extendable. So what that means is it's written backwards for some reason. So all incoming transmissions on port 3389 to the address 198.108.209.29, which is the public address, the public facing side of the router, all incoming transmission on that port will be forwarded to port 3389 on the machine 10.29.0.5 internally, on the internal network. So, and I'm sorry, over the UDP protocol. If you look above that, I have one for TCP right directly above that. So port 3389 is the default remote desktop port for Windows Remote Desktop. So, and I made it just so I can do this. So if I go to remote desktop connection and go to 10.29, You know, I may have never actually enabled remote connectivity on that server. I don't think it's going to let me in. Yeah, no. Okay, well, that's a bad example. But here's another example that we know works. So, the third from the bottom, port address translation, which shows port 443 as being translated. We know that one works because I can hit my exchange, I can hit my ECP console on port 443, which is HTTPS protocol, across the web. So I can, from my laptop, I can go to 198.108.209.29 over HTTPS and hit my machine. So we know that one works. So now there's 3 different ports that you want translated to your exchange box. You want port 25, which is the SMTP protocol. All mail works over that protocol. So you want that translated from your public address to the private address of your server. And for me, I have it pointed at the wrong private address. That was for an old Exchange server I had running a while back. You also want either POP3 or IMAP 4, or just IMAP, I'm sorry, protocol going to, most likely IMAP, because POP3 is kind of a, it's an older protocol with less functionality as IMAP. So I forget which port IMAP works over, but essentially the IMAP port allows people to have a local copy of their inbox. So like if I go to my Outlook mail right here, that's running over POP3. When I click on that application, it gives me a little local, version of my mailbox. Anyways, I'm not gonna go ahead and make those now. I think the concept is pretty clear. Go ahead and Google the port for IMAP, and for SMTP it's port 25, and then you want port 443 for getting into for clients who might want to access their OWA, or administrators who want to access the ECP console. So those are the only 3 port address translations you really need, and I think I've gone over that long enough. So that's that. Anyway, guys, I'm sorry that I couldn't prove to you that this works by sending and receiving a message, but I don't have any DNS machines up right now, and I don't feel like configuring them. I showed you how to configure them, though, if you need to, and it should work. Again, there's plenty. If for some reason it doesn't, there's plenty of information online about DNS and port address translation. But your Exchange server should be fully configured at this point to send and receive mail. So I guess this will be the last video, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope your Exchange server worked if you followed my videos. And we'll see you around. Thanks for joining us.